For 3 decades, Johnny Carson delivered America's most reliable nightly ritual. Smooth monologues, polished interviews, perfect timing. But behind that iconic blue curtain lurked a secret. Some of Hollywood's biggest names stumbled onto that stage in states that would shock viewers at home. What happened when legends arrived too intoxicated to remember their own names? And how did Carson turn potential disasters into television gold? The pressure cooker. Why stars needed chemical courage. The Tonight Show green room wasn't just a waiting area. It was a pressure chamber where careers could launch or implode in minutes. Unlike today's heavily scripted talk shows, Carson demanded spontaneous, genuine conversation, which terrified many guests. A fully stocked bar awaited nervous celebrities, and the 1970s permissive culture meant many arrived having already indulged elsewhere. From marijuana to cocaine to prescription pills, the era's substances flowed freely through entertainment circles. And Carson's show wasn't immune. Carson himself enjoyed alcohol, but maintained iron control on camera. This created interesting dynamics when guests lacked similar restraint. Production staff developed coded signals. A tie adjustment meant this guest isn't sober, while straightened cards signaled directors to keep camera work simple. The comedy philosopher, George Carlin's relaxed brilliance. George Carlin transformed from clean-cut comedian to counterculture icon in the early 70s, and his Tonight Show appearances reflected this shift. Appearing over 130 times, Carlin never hid his cannabis use. It became part of his brand. Staff members noted Carlin's slightly glazed appearance, but what set him apart was functionality. He remained sharp and witty, just more philosophical. Carson adapted by asking open-ended questions that let Carlin's mind wander into fascinating territories. Interestingly, despite being a frequent favorite, Carlin never received an invitation to guest host, a privilege extended to other comics. The unspoken reason was reliability concerns about his lifestyle choices. Carlin later confirmed these suspicions in his autobiography, essentially saying, "Of course I was high. It was the 70s and I was me." The volatile genius. Richard Pryor's unpredictable edge. If Carlin represented controlled enhancement, Richard Pryor embodied something more dangerous. His brilliance remained intact, but focus and filter became increasingly unreliable, especially during his late 70s cocaine period. One 1978 appearance started strong, but gradually dissolved mid-story, with Pryor's attention visibly drifting. The audience laughed nervously, uncertain if this was intentional comedy or something concerning. Carson smoothly redirected with questions and jokes, then transitioned to commercial crisis management disguised as casual conversation. Unlike hosts who might exploit vulnerable moments, Carson worked to showcase Pryor's genius while minimizing concerning segments. Staff noted Carson would check on Pryor through mutual friends after particularly erratic appearances, genuinely worried about the comedian's trajectory. The literary disaster, when respect disappeared. Not all altered appearances involved comedians. Sometimes the most shocking incidents came from unexpected sources, like a distinguished literary figure whose 1980 appearance became legendary for wrong reasons. Truman Capote had been a talk show favorite for years, displaying sharp wit and keen observations. But his January 1980 visit was different. Slurred speech, head nodding, startled reactions. Staff described him as barely conscious. Unlike his patient handling of others, Carson's response here was markedly different. His smile tightened, questions simplified, and segments shortened. After cutting to commercial, Carson reportedly told staff, "Never again. He's done." The difference? Capote's condition represented disrespect, not for Carson personally, but for the show and audience. This crossed Carson's line from creative enhancement to complete non-functionality. The honest owners. Cheech and Chong's authentic brand. Some guests made zero pretense about their relationship with cannabis. Comedy duo Cheech and Chong built entire careers around marijuana culture, and Carson brilliantly incorporated this into the comedy. Rather than disguising their obvious consumption, Carson played exaggerated straight man to their antics. He'd feign confusion about drug references, ask innocent questions, and glance knowingly at cameras, creating comedy where everyone was in on the joke. During one appearance, Chong launched into a rambling, disconnected story. Instead of redirecting, Carson simply let it unspool, occasionally raising an eyebrow that sent audiences howling. This wasn't about exposure. It was about authenticating their brand. The psychedelic journey, when time became non-linear. The counterculture revolution brought new substances that sometimes collided spectacularly with network television, as happened during Peter Fonda's bizarre 1970 appearance. Staff strongly suspected LSD involvement based on massively dilated pupils and Fonda's tendency to stare at lights and hands before suddenly attempting to answer questions from 30 seconds earlier. When asked about upcoming projects, standard promotional fare, Fonda began discussing how time isn't linear but wrapped around us like a blanket, and how we're all riding the cosmic wave of consciousness. Carson gave the emergency signal. 2 card taps meaning cut to commercial immediately. The 12-minute interview lasted 5 minutes. After the break, Fonda had vanished, replaced by the next guest with zero explanation. The aggressive drunk, when entertainment became threat. British actor Oliver Reed's 1975 visit demonstrated how quickly substances could transform entertainment into genuine concern. Visibly intoxicated, Reed progressed from slurred responses to loud interruptions to suddenly standing and demonstrating fighting stances. Security personnel moved closer to stage as Carson's body language shifted, no longer gently guiding, but firmly controlling. He interrupted Reed's rambling, redirected forcefully, and cut the segment significantly short. Carson's message afterward was clear. I don't care how big a star someone is. If they can't control themselves, they don't sit at my desk. Reed joined a very short permanent ban list. The accelerated entertainer, suspicious energy. Some appearances generated whispered rumors rather than obvious impairment. Sammy Davis Jr.'s hyperkinetic 1974 interview had insiders recognizing telltale signs of cocaine, rapid speech, constant movement, darting eyes, and unusual sweating. Yet Davis's professionalism never wavered. He remained charming and entertaining, just with volume turned significantly up. When later asked directly about that appearance, Davis reportedly smiled and said, "Baby, the 70s were the 70s. Let's leave it at that." Carson's philosophy: entertainment over judgment. These 7 cases, Carlin, Pryor, Capote, Cheech and Chong, Fonda, Reed, and Davis, reveal Carson's nuanced approach to navigating cultural revolution in real time. His strategy operated on what staff called an impairment spectrum, different responses based on how guest conditions affected television quality. Stoned but brilliant? Fine. Incoherent or aggressive? Unacceptable. Carson's 3 unbreakable rules. Don't threaten anyone. Don't disrespect the audience. Don't waste airtime. Break these and you wouldn't return, regardless of fame.